Today on MTG Unpacked, we're getting stuck into the new Duskmourn House of Horror Commander deck, Endless Punishment. So this is a Rakdos deck, the commander here, Valgavoth, Harrower of Souls. So let's see what we get here. So we actually get some arch enemy cards, that's pretty cool. So 10 of those, that's a 3 against 1 format. We've got a 100 card deck, 10 new cards, 10 arch enemy cards, 10 double-sided token cards, deck box, strategy insert, and reference card. Let's get into it. So the playmat was selected purely because I don't have a Valgavoth playmat, and I am getting some Phyrexian vibes from this character, so let me know in the comments what you think about that. Okay, so we've got a bunch of stuff here inside the envelope. Okay, so this is our arch enemy cards. Alright, we'll set those aside. What else? We have a flyer, the deck itself, a bunch of stuff in here, and some cool punch outs. So locked doors, we've got this door enchantment mechanic. Some other punch outs here as well. Then inside here we have a collector booster sample pack along with what is called a deck box, but you can see what this is about. So let's open this up, and yeah, we could probably fit a sleeved deck in there. Alright, so there is a Valgavoth. And let's get started here, I think, with the Collector Booster Sample Pack. So get us a bit of a taste of Collector Boosters. And usually there's nothing too crazy in these, but sometimes you do pretty good. Alright, so what do we got here? Unidentified Hover Ship. So a showcase version. A UFO there, clearly. And we're out of focus, there we go. And one of these rooms, we have a Smoky Lounge and Misty Salon. Okay, so that is it for that thing. And we'll take a look at the flyer here. These decks currently way overpriced on TCG Player. You're looking at over $80 US. Should be closer to 40, so I would not recommend picking one up until they're cheaper. So here we've got some lore about Valgavoth. Basically controls Duskmourn, has become the house effectively. And on the other side here we've got some special rules for arch enemy, so it's a multiplayer variant. You can play that alongside the commander format. And then we have the general commander rules here, so pretty cool. So let's see here. We'll get into our deck, and then at the end we'll take a look at those arch enemy cards. You'll notice there is no life counter in here, also no thick display commander. So I guess people figured they weren't that popular, so they just wouldn't include that stuff and cut costs as well, of course. Here we have Valgavoth, Harrower of Souls, legendary creature, Elder Demon. It's a mythic. 4/4 for 2. Black and red, has flying. Ward is pay 2 life. So if you want to target this one, you got to pay that cost. Whenever an opponent loses life for the first time during each of their turns, put a +1/+1 counter on Valgavoth, Harrower of Souls, and draw a card. So when your opponent's losing life, he gets bigger and you get card draw. That's pretty awesome. And the art on this is pretty cool. We have the Lord of Pain, another mythic. Legendary creature, human assassin, 5/5 for 3 black and red. Has menace. Your opponents can't gain life. And whenever a player casts their first spell each turn, choose another target player. The Lord of Pain deals damage equal to that spell's mana value to the chosen player. So you've got a couple of legendaries here. Let's get into the rest of the deck. Then we have Fear of Burning Alive. So there's actually 14 fears in the deck, including the scheme that is in the commander deck. So technically 13, but 14 in total. Say enchantment creature, nightmare, 4/4 for 4 and 2 red. When it enters, it deals 4 damage to each opponent. So they used to say enters the battlefield. They've shortened that now. Has delirium. Whenever a source you control deals non-combat damage to an opponent, if there are 4 or more card types among cards in your graveyard, Fear of Burning Alive deals that amount of damage to target creature that player controls. And then we have Grab the Prize, sorcery for 1 and red. As an additional cost to cast this spell, discard a card, and then draw 2 cards. If the discarded card wasn't a land card, Grab the Prize deals 2 damage to each opponent. And then we've got Terramorphic Expanse. It's a land. Tap, sack it, search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. Then we have Blood Pact, instant for 2 and a black. Target player draws 2 cards and loses 2 life. And of course that will then trigger Valgavoth, so that's pretty cool. Blood Seeker, creature, vampire, shaman, 1/1 for 1 and a black. Whenever a creature an opponent controls enters, you may have that player lose 1 life. So I think that'll be the focus of the deck, making sure your opponents are losing life as much as possible. We have Feed the Swarm, sorcery for 1 and a black. Destroy target creature or enchantment an opponent controls. You lose life equal to that permanent's mana value. Then we have an Arcane Signet, artifact for 2. Tap to add 1 mana of any colour in your commander's colour identity. Lightning Greaves, nice reprint here. Commander staple. Artifact equipment for 2. Equip creature as haste and shroud. So it can't be the target of spells or abilities. Equip for 0. So this is something you'd probably want to equip on Valgavoth or the Lord of Pain. Then we have Soul Ring, pretty much in every commander deck these days. Artifact for 1, tap to get 2 colorless. And then we have Command Tower, land, tap to add 1 mana of any color in your commander's color identity. Bastion of Remembrance, enchantment for 2 and a black. When it enters, create a 1/1 white human soldier creature token. Whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Again, triggering your commander. Blood Artist, creature vampire. It's a 0/1 for 1 and a black. Whenever Blood Artist or another creature dies, target player loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Falconwrath Noble, creature vampire noble, 2/2 for 3 and a black, has flying. Whenever it or another creature dies, target player loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Sensing a theme here, we have Gary, the Grey Merchant of Asphodel, creature zombie, 2/4 for 3 and 2 black. When Gary enters, each opponent loses X life, where X is your devotion to black. You gain life equal to the life lost this way, and each black in the mana cost of permanents you control counts towards your devotion to black. Then we have Infernal Grasp, instant for 1 and a black. Destroy target creature, you lose 2 life. Morbid Opportunist, creature, human rogue, 1/3 for 2 and a black. Whenever 1 or more other creatures die, draw a card. This ability triggers only once each turn. Sign in Blood, sorcery for 2 black. Target player draws 2 cards and loses 2 life. And Sir Conrad, the Grim legendary creature, human knight, 5/4 for 3 and 2 black. Whenever another creature dies or a creature card is put into a graveyard from anywhere other than the battlefield, or a creature card leaves your graveyard, Sir Conrad the Grim deals 1 damage to each opponent. For 1 and a black, each player mills a card. They each put the top card of their library into their graveyard. Then we got Light Up the Stage, sorcery for 2 and red, has Spectacle for a red, so you can cast a spell for its spectacle cost rather than its mana cost if an opponent lost life this turn. Exile the top 2 cards of your library until end of your next turn. You may play those cards. Carter Doomscourge, legendary creature, demon berserker, 4/3 for 2 black and red. When Carter enters into your next turn, creatures your opponent's control attack each combat if able and attack a player other than you if able. And whenever an attacking creature dies, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Mayhem Devil, creature devil, 3/3 for 1 black and red. Whenever a player sacrifices a permanent, Mayhem Devil deals 1 damage to any target. Rakdos Charm, instant for black and red. Choose 1, exile target player's graveyard, destroy target artifact. Each creature deals 1 damage to its controller. For War Stone, artifact for 2, tap to add 1 mana of any color. that a land an opponent controls could produce. And Mind Stone, artifact for 2, tap 4, colorless for 1, tap, sack it, draw a card. Rakdos Signet, artifact for 2, for 1, tap, add black and red mana. Talisman of Indulgence, artifact for 2, tap 4, colorless, or tap 4, black or red, and it deals 1 damage to you. Thought Vessel, artifact for 2, you have no maximum hand size, tap 4, colorless. And Ash Barrens, it's a land, tap 4, colorless, has basic land cycling 1, so you pay 1, discard this card, search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. We've got a Persistent Constrictor, creature, zombie snake, what the heck? 5/3 for 4 and a black. At the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, they lose 1 life, and you put a -1/-1 counter on up to 1 target creature they control. Also has Persist, so when this creature dies, if it had no -1/-1 counters on it, return it to the battlefield under its owner's control with a -1/-1 counter on it. Sadistic Shell Game, sorcery for 4 and a black. Starting with the next opponent in turn order, each player chooses a creature you don't control. Destroy the chosen creatures. Then we have Suspended Sentence, instant for 3 and a black. Destroy target creature an opponent controls. That player loses 3 life. Exile Suspended Sentence with 3 time counters on it. So it has Suspend 3 for 1 and a black. So rather than cast this card from your hand, you may pay 1 and a black and exile it with 3 time counters on it. At the beginning of your upkeep, remove a time counter. When the last is removed, you may cast it without paying its mana cost. And we got a Barbed Flare Gremlin. Creature Gremlin, 3/2 for 3 and a red, has first strike and haste. Whenever a player taps a land for mana, if Barbed Flare Gremlin is tapped, that player adds 1 mana of any type that land produced. Then that land deals 1 damage to that player. And we got a Gleeful Arsonist. Creature Human Wizard, 1/2 for 2 and a red. Whenever an opponent casts a non-creature spell, Gleeful Arsonist deals damage equal to its power to that player. Also has Undying. When this creature dies, if it had no +1/+1 counters on it, return it to the battlefield under its owner's control with a +1/+1 counter on it. And we've got one of these rooms here. Spiked Corridor is a 3 and a red. When you unlock this door, create 3 1/1 red devil creature tokens with. When this creature dies, it deals 1 damage to any target. And the Torture Pit here for 3 and a red. If a source you control would deal non-combat damage to an opponent, it deals that much damage +2 instead. So you may cast either half. So that door unlocks on the battlefield as a sorcery. You may pay the mana cost of a locked door to unlock it. Then we have Star Athlete. Creature Human Warrior, 3/2 for 1 and 2 red, has Menace. Whenever Star Athlete attacks, choose up to 1 target non-land permanent. Its controller may sacrifice it. If they don't, Star Athlete deals 5 damage to that player. Has Blitz for 3 and a red, so if you cast a spell for its Blitz cost, it gains haste, and when this creature dies, draw a card. Sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. Okay, grabbing more of the deck here. Let's go down to lands. Actually, there's a ton of lands here. So there we go. We'll go to the basics. Then we have a Seance board. Artifact for 2 has Morbid. At the beginning of each end step, if a creature died this turn, put a soul counter on Seance board. Tap to add X mana of any one color, where X is the number of soul counters on Seance board. Spend this mana only to cast instant, sorcery, demon, and spirit spells. Then we have Bedevil. Instant for 2 black and a red. Destroy a target artifact, creature, or planeswalker. Mogus, God of Slaughter. Nice mythic legendary enchantment creature god. 7/5 for 2 black and red, has indestructible. As long as your devotion to black and red is less than 7, Mogus isn't a creature, and at the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, Mogus deals 2 damage to that player unless they sacrifice a creature. Then we have Braid's Arisen Nightmare. Legendary creature nightmare. 3/3 for 1 and 2 black. At the beginning of your end step, you may sacrifice an artifact, creature, enchantment, land, or planeswalker. If you do, each opponent may sacrifice a permanent that shares a card type with it. For each opponent Who doesn't, that player loses 2 life and you draw a card. Decree of Pain, sorcery for 6 and 2 black. Destroy all creatures, they can't be regenerated. Draw a card for each creature destroyed this way. You can cycle it for 3 and 2 black, so that means you pay that, discard this card. You get to draw a card, and when you cycle Decree of Pain, all creatures get -2/-2 until end of turn. Then we have a Fate Unraveler, Enchantment Creature Hag, 3/4 for 3 and a black. Whenever an opponent draws a card, Fate Unraveler deals 1 damage to that player. Curious why they didn't have that as a witch type instead. Cataract Parasite, Creature Horror, 1/1 for a black. Whenever an opponent draws a card, if you control a red permanent, you may have Cataract Parasite deal 1 damage to that player. Then we have Mask of Gristlebrand, legendary artifact equipment for 1 and 2 black. Equipped creature has flying and lifelink. Whenever a equipped creature dies, you may pay X life, where X is its power. If you do, draw X cards. Equip for 3. Then we have Massacre Girl. This card is nuts. It's a legendary creature, human assassin, 4/4 for 3 and 2 black with menace. When it enters, each other creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn. Whenever a creature dies this turn, each creature other than Massacre Girl gets -1/-1 until end of turn. And Massacre Worm. It's a mythic creature, Phyrexian Worm, 6/5 for 3 and 3 black. When it enters, creatures your opponents control get -2/-2 until end of turn. And whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, that player loses 2 life. Then we have Nightshade Harvester, creature Elf Shaman, 2/2 for 3 and black. Whenever a land an opponent controls enters, that player loses 1 life. Put a +1/+1 counter on Nightshade Harvester. Then we have Blasphemous Act, sorcery for 8 and a red. The spell costs 1 less to cast for each creature on the battlefield, and it deals 13 damage to each creature. Then we've got Brash Taunter, creature Goblin, 1/1 for 4 and a red, indestructible. Whenever Brash Taunter is dealt damage, it deals that much damage to target opponent. And for 2 and a red, tap, it fights another target creature. Chaos Warp, instant for 2 and a red. The owner of target permanent shuffles it into their library, then reveals a top card of their library. If it's a permanent card, they put it onto the battlefield. Then we have a Combustible Gearhulk. It's another mythic artifact creature construct, 6/6 for 4 and 2 red with first strike. When it enters, target opponent may have you draw 3 cards. If the player doesn't, you mill 3 cards, then it deals damage to that player equal to the total mana value of those cards. Then we have Enchanter's Bane, enchantment for 1 and a red. At the beginning of your end step, target enchantment deals damage equal to its mana value to its controller unless that player sacrifices it. Then we have Harsh Mentor, creature human cleric, 2/2 for 1 and a red. Whenever an opponent activates an ability of an artifact, creature, or land on the battlefield, if it isn't a mana ability, Harsh Mentor deals 2 damage to that player. And Rampaging Ferocidon, creature dinosaur, 3/3 for 2 and a red, has menace. Players can't gain life. And whenever another creature enters, Rampaging Ferocidon deals 1 damage to that creature's controller. We've got a Tectonic Giant, creature elemental giant, 3/4 for 2 and 2 red. Whenever it attacks or becomes a target of a spell an opponent controls, choose 1. It deals 3 damage to each opponent, or exile the top 2 cards of your library, choose one of them, until end of your turn you may play that card. Then we have Florian Voldaren Scion, 3/3 for 1 black and red. It's a legendary creature, Vampire Noble, first strike. At the beginning of your second main phase, look at the top X cards of your library, where X is the total amount of life your opponent's lost this turn. Exile one of those cards and put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. You may play the exiled card this turn. And we have Kurvek the Merciless, legendary creature, human shaman, 5/4 for 5 black and red. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, Kurvek the Merciless deals damage equal to that spell's mana value to any target. Then we have Rakdos, Lord of Riots, legendary creature demon, another mythic, 6/6 for 2 black and 2 red. You can't cast a spell unless an opponent lost life this turn. Shouldn't be too difficult with this deck. Has flying and trample. Creature spells you cast cost 1 less to cast for each life your opponents have lost this turn. Then we have Spiteful Visions. It's an enchantment for 2 and a combo of either 2 black or 2 red or a mix of both. At the beginning of each player's draw step, that player draws an additional card. Whenever a player draws a card, Spiteful Visions deals 1 damage to that player. Then we have Stormfist Crusader, creature human knight, 2/2 for black and red with menace. At the beginning of your upkeep, each player draws a card and loses 1 life. Then we have Theatre of Horrors, enchantment for 1 black and red. At the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top card of your library. During your turn, if an opponent lost life this turn, you may play lands and cast spells from among cards exiled with Theatre of Horrors. And for 3 in a red, it deals 1 damage to target opponent or planeswalker. Then we have Vile Smasher the Fierce, another mythic legendary creature, Goblin Berserker, 2/3 for 1 black and red. Whenever you cast your first spell each turn, choose an opponent at random. Vile Smasher the Fierce deals damage each of that spell's mana value to that player or a planeswalker that player controls. Has partner, so you can have 2 commanders if both have partner. Then we have a Basilisk Collar, artifact equipment for 1. Equipped creature has Death Touch and Lifelink, equipped for 2. And Solemn Simulacrum, artifact creature Golem, 2/2 for 4. When it enters, you may search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield, tap, then shuffle, and when it dies, you may draw a card. Blackcleave Cliffs, a land enters tapped unless you control 2 or fewer other lands, tap for black or red. And Canyon Slow, it's a Swamp Mountain, tap for black or red, enters tapped, cycle for 2. Dragon Skull Summer enters tapped unless you control a swamp or a mountain, tap for black or red. Exotic Orchard, another land, tap to add 1 mana of any colour that a land an opponent controls could produce. Foreboding Ruins, as it enters, you may reveal a swamp or mountain card from your hand. If you don't, it enters tapped, tap for black or red. And Graven Cans, tap for colourless or for black or red, add 2 black, 2 red, or black and red. Shadowblood Ridge, another land, for 1 tap, add black and red. And Shivan Gorge, legendary land, tap for colourless for 2 and a red, tap, it deals 1 damage to each opponent. Then we got a Smouldering Marsh, tap for black or red, enters tapped unless you control 2 or more basic lands. And Spine Rock Knoll, another land here, Hideaway 4. So when this land enters, look at the top 4 cards of your library, exile 1 face down, and put the rest on the bottom in a random order. Enters tap, tap for red, or pay red, tap. You may play the exiled card without paying its mana cost if an opponent was dealt 7 or more damage this turn. Then we got Sulphurous Springs, tap for colourless or tap for red or black, and it deals 1 damage to you. Temple of Malice enters tapped. When it enters, scry 1, tap for black or red. And Witch's Clinic, it's a land, tap for colourless for 2 tap. Target commander gains lifelink until end of turn. Bloodfell Caves enters tapped. When it enters, you gain 1 life. Tap for black or red. And Evolving Wilds, tap, sack it, search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. Geothermal Bog, land, swamp, mountain, tap for black or red, enters tapped. And Leech Ridden Swamp, tap for black, it enters tapped. And for black, tap, each opponent loses 1 life, activate only if you control 2 or more black permanents. Then we've got Tainted Peak, tap for colourless or tap for black or red, activate only if you control a swamp. And Temple of the False God, tap for 2 colourless, activate only if you control 5 or more lands. And then I think we have lands and tokens here. So basic swamps, we have 8 of those. Mountains, 8 of those as well. And then the tokens, we have a Human Soldier 1/1 flipping around into a 4/4 Scarecrow with Vigilance. A Devil 1/1, when it dies it deals 1 damage to any target, flipping it into a Scarecrow here, Vigilance 4/4. And then we have a Devil, alright, Scarecrow, another Devil, and Scarecrow, yep. So we're just getting a ton of those, I guess. Yet another one. Are we actually going to get any other tokens, or is this it? Maybe this is it. Okay, Devil, okay, and then parts of the turn and popular Magic formats, of course. Commander, the most popular of all. So let's see. We actually got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of these tokens. Whoa, okay. And then not to forget the arch enemy cards here. So let's get into these. So these oversized cards for the arch enemy format. So these things are pretty cool. And reprinted with new art, I believe. So when will you learn? So this is a scheme. When you set this scheme in motion, each opponent exiles the top card of the library. You may cast any number of spells from among cards exiled this way without paying their mana costs. And yeah, just we'll get some arch enemy back here. Then we have my Crushing Masterstroke. So another scheme. When you set this scheme in motion, gain control of all non-land permanents your opponents control until end of turn. Untap those permanents. They gain haste until end of turn. Each of them attacks its own at this turn if able. Then we have Fear My Authority, ongoing scheme. So this scheme remains face up until it's abandoned. Creatures you control get +2/+2 and have fear. They can't be blocked except by artifact creatures and or black creatures. At the beginning of your upkeep, abandon this scheme unless you discard a card or pay 3 life. Then we have Reality is Mine to control and an ongoing scheme. So whenever you cast a spell, you may abandon this scheme. If you do, copy that spell, and you may choose new targets for the copy. I like the artwork on that one. Then we have Running is Useless. When you set this scheme in motion, choose any number of creatures with different mana values. Destroy those creatures. And You Exist Only to Amuse. When you set this scheme in motion, choose one. If you control 6 or more lands, choose both instead. Create 3 1/1 red devil creature tokens with when this creature dies, it deals 1 damage to any target. So that's why we need all these tokens here. Until your next turn, creatures your opponents control have base power and toughness 1/1 and lose all abilities. Then we have I Call for Slaughter. When you set this scheme in motion, create 3 1/1 red devil creature tokens with when this creature dies, it deals 1 damage to any target. They gain haste until end of turn. If a source you control would deal damage this turn, it deals that much damage +1 instead. Then we have I Will Savor Your Agony. When you set this scheme in motion, choose 3. You may choose the same mode more than once. Destroy target creature. Target player draws a card. Target player gains 5 life. And Your Nightmares Are Delicious. When you set this scheme in motion, each opponent who has more than 5 cards in hand discards cards equal to the difference. Then if fewer than 3 cards were discarded this way, you draw 3 cards. And finally, we have No Secret is Hidden from Me. When you set this scheme in motion, exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a non-land card. You may cast that card without paying its mana cost. Then if you control 6 or more lands, repeat this process once. Alright, so that's a fun new dimension to gameplay. You don't have to use these arch enemy cards, but you can choose to have arch enemy games now and then. Looks like the format's a lot of fun. And of course, the main goal of this deck is you're making your opponents lose life as much as possible and benefiting from that and really bulking up your commander, getting some card draw here. So it looks like a fun deck, and of course I'm a big fan of the Rakdos color combo. Let me know in the comments what you think about this one, and stay tuned, we'll be getting stuck into the rest of the Duskmourn commander decks in the coming days. Hope everyone's staying safe and healthy out there. Thanks for watching and have a great day.